Welcome again to Vinny Makes the Hall of Fame case for ... Who's it going to be, Vinny? Our resident Hall of Fame expert. Who have you got?
You know, I feel like the time to change it up a little bit this episode.
Okay.
I've talked about some baseball guys, talked about some football guys, but I'm like seeing, with the Basketball Hall of Fame just releasing its lists of nominees for the class of 2022, I thought it would only be appropriate that I start giving a basketball individual that I would like.
Mm-hmm.
And in case anyone's curious, this is not a contributor, but I would argue that he is the most deserving individual that's not in the Hall of Fame, period. Easily the most deserving. Everyone else doesn't come close to how deserving this guy is.
You've got a really, really good one. I'm glad you picked it. I really enjoyed doing my preliminary research. Obviously, you're going to be the expert on this one. Tell everyone who it is.
Mr. Leroy Edwards. Now, in case you don't know who he is, he, in my opinion, is the greatest basketball player that has never been inducted, ever once. And it's very shocking to me that he isn't, because in a lot of as much of the research that I have done, he is a pioneer of the sport. Mm-hmm. He is one of the best players in the history of the sport by quite a big margin, and was even George Mikan's biggest rival back in the day. But that's only a little bit of it. There's way more to it.
Yeah,
As we know,
let's talk about where he started.
Okay. Leroy Edwards, he was nicknamed, he was nicknamed the East Side Terror back when he played at the Arsenal Technical High School back when he lived in Indianapolis. He was known for doing the hook shots, mainly because he was a barnstorming team back in like the 20s. But during his high school years, he led the team in scoring his final 2 seasons, while he also helped to win the Indianapolis City Crown. All 3 of those seasons when he was in varsity, he won them. Mm-hmm. And he led the North Central Conference in scoring twice and led Arsenal to state quarterfinals as a junior. Back then, there were no divisional breakdowns, which is pretty impressive for the time. Now, that's just high school alone. That's already pretty impressive. Now,
and we should mention, the Basketball Hall of Fame, to their credit, does look at an overall resume. So if you're thinking, why is Vinny talking about high school? Because it matters. They do pay attention.
Everything matters. The second you shoot a basketball, touch it once, that's going to matter. Mm-hmm. Everything matters. And that's a big reason why it's one of my favorites to really talk about.
Yep.
Then he decided, I would like to take on and join the University of Kentucky. And not bad, I would say. As a freshman, he wasn't allowed to play. But as a freshman, he set a college scoring record of 24 points per game in 17 games. And that freshman team, undefeated season under his leadership.
Yeah, and he won also. I saw that he was a College Player of the Year, the Helms Award.
Yes, he was.
All-American. Not in the College Basketball Hall of Fame.
Surprisingly not, even though he was the person responsible for the 3-second rule. Now, in case you're curious what that is, the 3-second rule, when it was enacted, it was designed to limit rough play that was near the basket. And another term for the 3-second rule that people know about, I think it was like, the lane violation, which in case you got...
Basically preventing like a lot of the rough stuff right in the paint.
That's a pretty integral part of the sport, and he's the reason why it was created. But during this time, he decided to end earlier after his sophomore year, which was very, very rare at the time. Now, it's more common now, but he was one of the very first ever to leave at a very young age after spending only 1 year on the main team. That's one and done. He was essentially a modern day. He was basically a past term day of what we call a one and done today, even though the freshman team and the main team were different. So that sounds pretty impressive so far. So when he decided to go pro, he was considered he is the best player in the country. So everyone knew, everyone and their grandmothers knew this guy, Leroy Edwards, best player in the country. He signed.
But let's go just putting it back into historical perspective too, because so he played for Kentucky in 35, so he would have turned pro in 36. There was no set organized league yet, or at least nothing major to what we sort of came. So I just want to sort of like set a historical.
Kind of hard for me to really say because there was the National Basketball League, which was a predecessor to the NBA as we know it, which, in case you don't know what the NBL was, that was started based on three corporations, General Electric, Goodyear, and Firestone, and it was around the Great Lakes Midwestern area.
I would think like so with 3 tire companies.
Well, yes. Yes, it was. Like, you know how Goodyear, like I don't know where it was. I think Goodyear once had a ad showing their history to basketball, and a lot of people don't really know about that. Yeah, Goodyear has a lot of roots in basketball.
I learned. I was 0 days old when I learned
that. Yeah. Well, he was incredible right outside the gate. He was, during his entire career, he was an 8-time All-NBL player, 6 times on their first team, 3 times from 1938 to 1940. He was a scoring champion while he was on the Oshkosh All-Stars, was even a 3-time MVP during that entire 3-year stretch as well, and even won 2 NBL champions back-to-back 1941 and 1942. He was a great offensive player, and he was an exceptional defensive player. And remember, back then, there was less minutes played, and there was no shot clock at that time. And I'll get to Leo Ferris down the road. Don't worry. The play was slower.
I knew his name was gonna come up in the show.
Don't worry. I'm gonna mention Leo Ferris on. Don't worry. I'm gonna get to him. But he was so exceptional that when Oshkosh won the league championship 6 times and participated 9 out of 10 of the tournaments, he was always a part of that. They were also crowned the world professional champions in Chicago in 1942. And Edwards was the all-time lead point scorer in the history of the world champion tournaments. And in 1945, when his career was only a few years before he decided to retire, while he was still playing, the United Press International, the UPI, called him one of the top 5 greatest basketball players of all time. Understand this. The sport was founded 130 years ago. So that would have been the 1890s. And during a span of roughly 50 years, he was so dominant that during that 50-year stretch, he was one of the top 5 greatest people to ever play the sport in the entire world.
So why do you think that he's been largely forgotten?
That is a major mystery. My personal guess is that he retired really just before the NBL decided to merge with the BBA and form the NBA. I think it's also because at that time, because Mikan was starting to become big in the NBA itself after they merged, it kind of led to Edwards becoming more forgotten. And at that time, those players weren't received even close to the amount that they have now. So he was mostly working at a plant in Chrysler, in Indianapolis Chrysler. But unfortunately, he didn't really live that long because at the age of 57 in 1971, he died of a heart attack. And
I was gonna say, I think also too, you're playing for a team that most people have never heard of in 2021, as we're nearing the end of 2021. That certainly has something to do with it because Oshkosh
Definitely.
folded. They
Yes,
did
they did.
not, as I was reading, when the owner died, so did the team essentially.
Yeah.
So there's not exactly a continuing legacy that we could, or linear legacy that we can look at in terms
Yeah.
of Oshkosh and really their greatest player. I was reading something and man, I wish there was television back then. So Oshkosh played the New York Renaissance, the Wrens,
Yes.
in a
That was their biggest rival.
in a 5-game series. And just for those unaware, I mean, I'm way older than you, Vinny, which is depressing, but all my life, I remember as a kid, because like when I first started watching basketball, and it was predominantly all black then, well, not all, but it was mostly black then.
Yeah.
When I learned at one point, oh no, black people weren't allowed to play in the NBA. Like,
No, but they weren't allowed. But they were big rivals. The Oshkosh All-Stars, their biggest rival was the New York Renaissance, and
yeah,
they often get one each other's throats, which is pretty cool. Like this all-white team went against this all-black team,
for the spirit of
and
competition, and
yeah, and they always drew such a large crowd these games, and they were held in
yeah,
Racine, Green Bay, Ripon, Madison, Oshkosh, and you know they did lose the series, but at the same time, they also beat the Wrens in both games. So the fact that as great as the Wrens are, and I'm so happy that the Wrens have been recognized and many have been inducted into the Hall of Fame.
mhm.
At the same time, the All-Stars as a team itself, in those 12 years, like during that entire stretch where Edwards was there, they made it to the playoffs all but 1 year. And in 5 consecutive years, they were in the championship.
Yeah. It's an incredible thing to sort of look back at some basketball history. I'm really glad that you chose basketball to sort of do this, and this is a great first one for it. Before we sign off, I just want to say congratulations, buddy. Vinny is now officially a member of the class of 2021 at Hofstra. A future, you're going to see him on Sundays. Hopefully, he'll remember us. Sundays meaning that he's going to be calling football. Listen to this voice. I wish I had that voice.
Yeah, indeed.
Modest.
Also,
too.
I have some sad news. Unless you want to see Ian Book play on Monday. Oh yeah, he's gonna be playing on Monday.
So congratulations to
Thank
that.
you.
I think I speak on behalf of everyone in the NotInHallOfFame.com community. Do we have a community? I'll say
I'd say we do. We have
All right,
a
yeah.
small but very, very connected community.
Yes. Well, we're all proud of you, buddy. We are.
Thanks.
Yeah. With that, this show is closed. Stay safe, everybody. Happy holidays, because we're recording this on December 23rd. Whenever you hear it, hey, I don't know when that is, but hey, happy holidays. Nevertheless,
Happy Festivus for the rest of us. Don't forget that today's the day.
Well, you are a New Yorker.
Yes, indeed I am.
Nice. Take care, everyone.
See you guys.